Right. Everyone comfortable? Go and have a drink? If not, go get yourself. This will be too late. Hi everyone. First of all, just like to thank you all for coming. My name is Gustaf Stenlund. I run the marketing for Nudge, content measurement and intelligence platform. We've driven value and scale across, throughout the content process for about 4,000 brands now, across 1,800 publishers. We tend to help them deliver increased ROI between 20 to 80%. We do that by enabling them to compare apples to apples across their content stack, essentially. So if anyone's interested in talking to me about that and how that works, just me afterwards. We've done quite a few of these talks before, both in New York and London. They're always great fun, so let's make sure that tonight is no exception. We've got some really inspiring speakers for you here tonight. Pioneers in the content industry in their own right. We've got Joanna Carrigan, head of branded content at News UK. She oversees the full heritage portfolio over there, which includes The Sun, The Times, The Sunday Times. She's also successfully helped grow their content studio, The Bridge Studio, which is very impressive. We've got Piercy with us from Wall Street Journal's Brand Group. He's the group creative director there. And he gives creative oversight to all of the custom projects around the world. Worked with a wide variety of partnerships, including Samsung, Starlines, and Netflix, to name a few. Very cool. Finally, but not least, we've got Kenna, CEO and co-founder of Brand Advance. Brand Advance is the first diversity media ecosystem, both on and offline, and you do some really, really cool things, not to mention in content. So, very glad you're all here tonight. What I'll do is I'd like to start by asking you all if you could please elaborate a bit about yourselves, your career to date, and your favorite campaign that you worked on. Why? Let's start with you, Chris.
Is it on? Okay, here we go. I apologize for sweating as well. It's so hot. Literally. So I'm just going to sweat now. A bit about me then. So I was in the army. I joined the army. Let's start from the beginning. Let's do it really fast. I was in care. From care, I went to the army. I was in the army for 10 years. I went to Iraq, to Afghan, back to Iraq. I had 2 kids. I'm married to a German in Germany. And then had an accident in Iraq. I got blown up. Didn't go home for a bit. Woke up and then told my then wife, now ex-wife, that I was gay. And life went a little bit crazy for a bit. And then had a total change of career and got into as presenter for a little bit. On TV and other crap shows you've never seen. And then moved into production. It was a production company, and now Brand Advance. And the reason why I start all the way back there is not to show some tragic story of my life, but it really is the whole reason why I started Brand Advance. You know, I had 2 kids. One is very white, German looking, and the other one is mixed race, little lad. And myself, I'm mixed race. You know, not from I wouldn't say a bad upbringing, but just not the normal upbringing. And it's really molded everything that I've done to build Brand Advance here, and now stretching out into other countries around the world. But I'm sure I'll delve a bit more into that as we go along.
So, favorite campaign?
Favorite campaign is it's what we did. I don't know if we did it last year or the beginning of this year, but basically for International Transgender Day of Awareness, we transitioned all of the Alexas in the world to Alex. So if you went up to your Alexa, it still works now, if you say open the voice of trans, your Alexa transitions to a transgender man's voice, and then you can ask questions about a transgender, about their life. Just because there's 25 million transgender people in the world, the likelihood, apart from in London or in New York, the likelihood of people ever bumping into one is quite low because there's about 8 billion people in the world. So we really wanted to try and get the story of the transgender person into as many homes as possible. So that's what we did.
I didn't know anything about this. Incredible. This is going to sound fucking terrible. Sorry. No, I started my career as a freelance journalist. Sorry, I'm head of brand content and news. I also head up the e-commerce editorial team. And yeah, I started my career as a journalist back in the day, a tabloid journalist at the Scottish Daily Mail. And then I quickly moved into commercial because basically I couldn't get jobs. So I ended up selling ad space, and I ended up then moving down to London. I worked at MediaCom, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with for a long time. And then I went to Huffington Post, where I was commercial editor for a few years, and now I'm at news. So yeah, as Gustaf said, I head up brand content across the Times, the Sunday Times, and the Sun. And I think probably the campaign that I'm most proud of having been part of, it was actually a really small part at the start and watched it grow, was the last couple of years of work with the November Foundation, which obviously, as the Sun, we're not a charitable paper, but we speak to the kind of people that the November Foundation should be speaking to, men who might find it difficult to open up about their mental health, and we certainly encourage that, and we absolutely beat all expectations and donations. We could create some really amazing content. So for me, that was particularly proud. So I've had some good campaigns and also some turkeys, but I think we'll see.
Thank you. And thanks to Gustaf and the team for inviting me. I hope we don't waffle too much. I'm sure I probably will. I'm Jim Piercy. I'm the Group Creative Director at WSJ Barron's Group. We're now called Trust. I'm not sure that changes in 6 months' time. So I look after all our custom output and integrated marketing. Before that, I was creative director at Bloomberg Media, where me and my best friend literally set up their custom business in a broom cupboard. And when I left, I was making $32 million a year, I think. In terms of memorable campaigns, and I've got plenty of memorable campaigns for all the wrong reasons. I'm sure we all have. I've got, and I've been incredibly lucky. I've been around the world doing what I do. Met some incredible people and worked with some incredibly talented individuals. I've had live tigers and troops of cheerleaders on the Isle of Dogs. Which was a good night. Sorry, try explaining that one to the other half in the morning. But I guess the most memorable, we did a campaign at the Journal, which I wrote and directed about 18 months ago for Star Alliance for their 20th anniversary. It was effectively around challenging yourself to do more. So we went around the world with a writer, and it's a collaboration with Nat Geo. And challenged him in different environments around the world. So we took him to Thailand and made him learn how to Thai box, and 48 hours later he had to go fight. And we went to the Arctic, and he had to build an igloo and sleep in it, and we went to the kind of highest village in Europe and stuff like that.
Did he win the fight?
No, absolutely not. Got battered.
If you were to I guess describe the change in content in the last 12 months in one word, what would it be and why? Let's start on this side.
Come on, word, but collaboration, I think. Certainly from my perspective inside a publisher, I think that is breaking out of the content creation group. So we're increasingly working with our research teams, our insight group, events teams, and then we're doing right in the middle actually of a big campaign for British Airways that we're working with the time from the Sunday time zone. But actually, I think probably more interestingly, collaborating with other media owners outside, with technically within our competitive set, like clients and agencies are expecting us to play nice with other people. They want us for a certain one type of campaign, and there are other places, but they don't want to do that work twice. So collaboration, I think, is one of the biggest trends that we've been seeing.
I think for me and for where I sit in the content space, it's another like total buzzword, but it's disruption, being disrupted. And I was trying to think all day like a better word to put it, but for us, a big part of my role is looking forward and looking at and kind of where we are kind of being disrupted, to be fair, and we are really having to face up to the fact that there's like some new kids on the block, which is absolutely the social publishers that have emerged and haven't been recently emerging. They've been around now for like 10 years. But the likes of like Lad Bible, Jungle, Kyra, and I think at one time we kind of underestimated them. I think we thought that they were building a house in someone else's land and that it would kind of all go away and we wouldn't really have to ever think about it. But fair play to them, they've absolutely like just come up like behind it in our rearview mirror. And they're starting to work with clients that we work with and actually clients that we want to work with. And fair play to them. And for us, that's been great. I think disruption is a good thing in your own business. I think you should constantly be trying to look at what your competition are doing and where the money's going if you're losing it. But at the same time, it's been hard because we've spent a long time building loyal audiences and engagement, and they play on Facebook where, it's a few second view and it's very, very fleeting, that engagement. So the clients are into it. So we have to work out how we can compete with them, but also how we can maintain, our stance on loyalty and engagement. So that's been a big wake up call for us. We had to eat a lot of humble pie and go, well, actually, shit, these guys are like doing a good job. So how do we face up to that? And it's not about like getting rid of the competition. It's about a new marketplace. So that's what we're about.
Mine really, I can only talk, with authority in the space that I work. So mine would be diversity. But I know the question was more like, why has it been good? I think also quite a lot of content hasn't been that good in that space, really. I think some of the bigger publishers that are making, good sponsored content, have a certain demographic, and I'd like to be speaking to that. And then there's the sort of platforms, or do you call it platforms? If I get the word right, you know what I mean. But the platforms that sort of do a lot of native content and you stick a widget, the publisher sticks a widget in there. Looking at, and I'm only saying this because I made our staff sort of go and we did a mini audit and looked at a lot of publishers and looked at a lot of the sort of native content. We looked at mainstream, and that had, let's say if it's a mainstream publisher, its audience is predominantly white. But then we also looked on some of the bigger BAME publications, and all of the sponsored content was all white. And then we did do a bigger one as well, where we looked at over 5 weeks. We looked at a larger array of publishers. We did it for Google when we were sort of pitching for their work, and we won the work because we went back and out of 40,000 faces that we found on sponsored native content, only 1,200 were people of colour. So I think there's still. Advertising itself has got a little bit of catching up to do, and I sort of want the world to catch up, but also I've built a company on them not catching up, so I don't want to. So I don't want to catch up to it, but I do, Yeah, absolutely. Let me take over a little bit more of the world there. But I think native content now is, and especially the platforms that sort of push it into other publishers, so not necessarily from the publishers themselves. I think that's where the game needs to be stepped up a little bit. We can't. This city, 57% of this city are big. So 57% of this city want to see content that looks like themselves or speaks to their community. 70% of the Asian population in the UK think that no advertising and no native content even talks to them. They literally dismiss it straight away. And then if you look at numbers, if you want to make a commercial reason for all of this, 30 billion spent from BAME, 81 billion spent from LGBT. Oh, that was another one we found as well. We couldn't find any LGBT content, none at all when we did the audit. Not a single piece was written, sponsored content from the voice of LGBT. So yeah, I think I've waffled a bit, but I think you get the point. I think there's a little bit more work to do, and I sound quite negative. That's my sphere in the world, so I can only speak from my learned experience. But yeah,
I think it's quite interesting actually, because we've definitely found that when we've been looking through and being a bit introspective and looking at our own content and our own images, and we've definitely felt that. And I think the LGBT piece is really interesting, because I recently took on someone from the Eastern News, and they just shut down because they feel like they've been kind of pushed out by rainbow washing, as they call it, which they feel like it's kind of become a hot topic. And it has, but not really. Like, it's become a hot topic in a way that brands are jumping on it, but I don't think that they are. And I'm not an LGBT person, I don't represent my community, but it does feel slightly like exactly what you're saying, not quite.
I think. No, I'm loud enough. I'm jogging. I think there is that, but also a lot of brands are putting their money where their mouth is. I don't know if I can say this. One of my boards sat at the back, so I don't know if I can say this. But a big brand like Google has diverted a large portion of their global ad spend to speak to diversity. All right, that's what, it's a large portion, and that is, do not spend it in mainstream. Go and find the other communities: BAME, LGBT, disability, over 50. All the different communities that are sort of thought of as niche, but they ain't niche. They're everywhere. So I think brands like L'Oreal that we work with, Talk and stuff. I don't know if you've seen a lot of the campaigns that are, even things like Scottish Widows. I'm only saying that because you've got a Scottish accent. They had LGBT. But so I think
Barron's here.
People are putting that, brands are putting money where their mouth is. I don't think it's just quite caught onto the native content yet. I was just in Manchester. I did a panel with Lads Bible and I forgot what the other one was. The social agency. Social chain. Yeah. And they are smashing it for all different reasons. But I think, if you went around from Manchester Pride, there was big brand activations and lots of money put in, and a lot of them I sort of would go up and sort of know who I am. I stick out, I'm really gobby, black gay guy that just doesn't shut up. And so I'd say, so you're just doing this, so you're going to do a bit more? And they would say, we're doing a 3-month, a 6-month campaign, or this is part of our year-long strategy. So I think they are, they should, and pay all year. So content should reflect that. You won't be to spend my money on cash. I don't, buy a Land Rover, you won't buy a Land Rover. Content pictorially is starting to get there. You see representation in that. Just think the native content or sponsored content. What are you writing and who's actually written it? Just needs to catch up a little bit now.
We're hearing a lot about digital-first brands at the moment. Brands that started online, so you got Google, you got Casper, you got Spotify. NBCU recently said that they had sold for $1 billion to these type of brands who traditionally didn't advertise with traditional media companies in the past. I'm interested to know if this is something that you're also seeing in the UK and what the proportion of sales is for you to these companies.
So we're definitely seeing an increase in briefs that are coming in from digital first companies, and it's quite encouraging, like specifically from companies that want to build back brand trust, and they feel like they've got a job to do in that space, like names, some big social networks. But for us, that's encouraging because we live in a time where we need journalism now more now than we've ever needed it, and the fact that it has been a tough few years, but journalism has always been, specifically news environments, have been trusted environments for advertisers. And while that's kind of dipped when there's been other newer, shinier kids in the block, it's always been there. Journalists risk their lives at our paper and to others to bring the truth out to people. we know that in the wake of the Trump election that subscriptions to the New York Times, I think it was like a 3-figure uplift. On the Times and Sunday Times, I think it was like 27% uplift in subscriptions, and people just looking for that source of truthful news. So the fact that people who potentially have taken away from that slightly come to us to be around that environment, and they're specifically asking for print campaigns, which is mental, and seeing absolutely a lot of outdoor. So returning to traditional media to like rebuild that trust with their core audience is really interesting. In terms of proportion, like, you know, it's difficult to say. I can't give away like figures, but it's definitely something that's kind of been very interesting to me coming from the agencies, and the fact that they are specifically requesting to be in very, very traditional environments. I don't know if you guys.
I don't really think it applies to me really, but just because of what my company does. So let me think. Say the question again. Let me think if I can pull something out that I can't answer. Yeah, if you don't mind.
So digital first brands such as Google, Spotify, what proportion of sales for you guys that they make up? Is that
all right? I suppose I can answer that bit. A large portion.
So for you, it's almost the opposite. You're hunting more traditional brands, maybe.
Yeah, I think we're quite lucky. Just you mentioned John, like he's been a godsend to my business because he made brands literally look at themselves, and then after looking at themselves, they start to look at who are we speaking to as a brand, and what are we saying, and you know, are we representing? And so you know, we've got him on that side of the pond, and we've got our own problems, and then we've got Yellow Jackets, it burns, and all of these problems in the world. You know, it's making brands from all over the world sort of question themselves, and then in turn start building actions, and that has led to them starting to push out, you know, and reach demographics that they traditionally didn't reach. So yeah, it's a large proportion for us. I should have listened to the question better with this. I listened to your answer and then went, oh. But yeah, it is large for us because, you know, digital first brands actually realise that we need to speak to everybody because they're digital and everybody is on the end of the nuts and ones. So, you know, they need to make sure that they are speaking to everybody.
They've grown up in the diversity ballot.
Yeah. You know, and traditional media, I think, can as well. I think, I'm going to put it nicely. I would like to do business with everyone in the room. There are some dinosaurs. Well, there are dinosaurs in the room. Not in the room. In the world. I don't even know where that came from. Dinosaurs in the world. Gosh, that was brilliant. There's dinosaurs in the world that are sort of leading some of the big media that aren't, you know, that are maybe not allowing it to change the times fast enough. You know, but I think every traditional, new, you know, new and old media is starting to now just realise that we need to speak to people, we need to speak to LGBT, we need to speak to disability. You know, out of 65 million people in the UK, 14.5 million are disabled. That's massive, you know. So everybody, I always think like everybody's always buying over there in mainstream media. Everybody's going for the slice of the audience in that pie. Yet there's all these big pots of money and demographics that not many people are going for. They're slowly starting to go over, and you know, the business case and the engagement is, you know, let's talk about recent digital campaign. You know, we could get like click-through rates of it. Anyone even knows what I'm talking about, but click-through rates of like 1.7%. You know, over there it's 0.03, or you know, because they're an audience that they've been there forever, but nobody's ever tried to talk to them. Not contextually relevant, you know. But I think a lot of big traditional media can help and partner with and do campaigns. You're not even, you know, you were saying about collaboration, you know, partnering with some of the smaller BAME audiences that, I say smaller, but they have big audiences. Some of you are really surprised at how big their audience is just because they've never advertised to them ever. It's just labours of love for somebody from uni that just kept the magazine going, and now everybody, you know, people around the world chip in. There's some, I'd love to start seeing more collaborations like that. But, yeah, I waffle.
What about over at Wall Street Journal? Do you see the same trend?
Well, I think, Chris and I were talking beforehand, this is not really an answer to your question, sorry. But the diversity thing is, it's kind of, it's so crucial. What's frustrating for me a lot of the time is that, that people will try and pin you back and say, oh yeah, but our audience is this. It's like, well, you bucket me in a 40+ straight white man. That, what does that mean? Like, what do I spend my weekend doing? What do I do in the week? Every single person in our audience is an individual with different loves and hates and interests and passions. Even further than that, like every single kind of study that's looked at diversity in terms of within an organisation, the more diversity you have, the more innovation you have. It actually affects the bottom line. It's kind of, even if you don't care about it from a kind of political, socio-economic point of view, just look at how much money you could make. It's ridiculous that that's not a bigger point. In terms of the big digital players, maybe we'll touch on this a little bit more. They do a lot of brand display with us. Content less so, obviously.
There's been a lot of chat around young, smaller brands disrupting the market through rapid growth. Monster is an example there, Harry's is another. Working older, more established brands to remain competitive from content brands.
Yeah, this is an interesting one to me because, the disruption there is at the consumer point, right? Harry's, to take the Harry's example, it's like, it's direct to consumer, it's subscription. But there's not a podcast I listen to that doesn't seem to be sponsored by fucking Harry's, right? Their advertising and their content is the most traditional of anybody else. So it's almost it's a weird question to make content producers the incumbent to change the business model of Gillette, for example. That's not my job. That's your job. You're out of date now. What are you going to do? I can tell you a story. We can talk about some of the amazing things you do if you do amazing things. You probably do in some way. But it reminds me a little bit when MP3 started taking over vinyl, and as a record collector, that was kind of weird to me. But people, this is ruining my life. It's like, the record industry is 50 years old. Things change. And with things like Harry's, but that's just the next iteration of that type of consumer business. So, where content fits in that is essentially just within the advertising space. But how do we help those traditional brands? Well, they need to help themselves, I think, first.
Joanna, I know you touched on this a little bit earlier. Maybe you could talk to me about it from more of maybe financial or some other vertical.
So, I think maybe the way that I can compare it is, what we were chatting about earlier on, absolutely these young fintech brands that once were not taken seriously by banks or Harry's, for example, and they've kind of come up. And if we compare that to our own experiences with, not to bang on, but Black Friday and kind of. So maybe for us, it's about what we're doing at the moment is not trying to directly compete with them, but trying to create pockets of agility and pockets of change. So it would be, if you were to advise a brand like as you say, Gillette or a larger bank, that from a content perspective, it's listen to your audience and what are they consuming and where are they consuming it, and create that content for the platform. I think Harry's have done a really good job of just being super snappy with their creative. They're very it's cheap, it's quick, it comes in the post. That's all that people need to know when they want to shape their face. It doesn't really matter that much. And once they start and they realise actually that if it's good quality product, then they'll just keep going, because it's actually harder to cancel a subscription than it is to do most things. So yeah, I mean, it's awful. So for me, I don't subscribe to Harry's. I don't want to be with, but you know. But for me, I think that for us, it's about it's just keeping like listening to what people are after in market. The fact that we're seeing some of our business go to the social publishers, and we can sit there and go, all we want, oh, they're only playing on Facebook and blah blah. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, we've got big brands telling us that's what they want reach. So actually, let's think about that. And it doesn't mean that we have to abandon all this long-form content that we're making. It's just actually like, let's be agile and think about it from a different point of view. And disruption is always good, as is being introspective and realising when you're wrong and when you're getting a bit old, and like kind of like you need to change your ways, which I think is a good thing.
Gosh, I feel like I always bring it back to legacy. But because you just mentioned Harry's, well, I don't know, has anyone seen the ad recently from Gillette where there's a transgender man being taught to shave by his dad, filmed in Canada? It's awesome. That, I think, is how they fight back. You know, and I know there's disagreement on the panel. I know you said you just shave and you go. For people of colour, it's not that easy because we have problems with ingrowing hairs. So finding a razor, you know, and razors and shaving is always targeted at white man with beard, you know. So when Gillette did that, they've only released it in Canada at the moment, but they've made a razor that actually helps to stop the ingrowing hairs on people of colour. We might have other razors that do that. I just know about that. But so I think, you know, that is a way to, when you bring that over to the UK, then you've just found £300 billion spending market that you can now start to tap into. That is Harry's in there yet because it's so throwaway? Probably not, because we've written my face to shreds. You know, just little things like that. I think thinking of audiences, thinking of nuances within that community, and then making content that fits, and it becomes. And then also, you know, where you place that content as well, because it's all very well having all this great content that's speaking to a certain demographic, but if you don't stick it in the media that will reach that demographic, then it's pretty useless. It's not resonating with what you put there. Does that make sense? So yeah, you know, so contextually relevant advertising alongside, you know, relevant content. Yeah.
All right. How would you
How
would you describe the perfect client, and how do you get the best work out of them?
Is there one? There is. I think they have to be open. Obviously, like communication. Like genuinely, again, it sounds like super corny, but the best work I've ever done has always been like a proper collaboration with the client, where, you know, they bring what they do best and we bring what we do best. Openness, risk taking, I think, is important. I mean, you know, we haven't really touched on this, but there is an issue I have with, you know, the internet and metrics, is that it often kind of crushes ideas down to averages, which and in that space, interest and innovation tends to suffer from a creativity point of view. So clients will take that risk. It will, you know, put something in front of them and go, actually, yeah, like, I'll take the risk in pitching that to my boss. That's really important, I think. I
mean, for us, I think that for me, they've
got to be rich, by the way.
They've got to be rich. To be fair, that is the best answer. Loads of money and not much accountability. That's no, mine. I completely, and I actually quite often say about bravery, but actually, I really understand why some clients aren't brave, because I think that they have such accountability to their bosses, and it's always how it gets pushed up. And I do sometimes think that there are conflicts of interest, whether it's an interest between one person within the chain wants to shift some product, but the other person wants to win a Cannes Lion, as in like it's the agency versus the client, or it's the publisher wants to bring in a cash for production, but actually the client needs to reach as many people as possible. So I do think that if you've got the perfect client is probably one you've been working with for a long time, you've built up trust and like continually working with, because there is too much of that where, you know, I'm probably too results driven because I also run the e-commerce editorial team, so I know how to sell stuff, but I also do the creative bit. So, and sometimes I think we'll probably work far too far one way than the other. But I think you have to be respectful of what everybody's goals are in the chain and work out something in the middle, and ultimately it's the person who holds the money you've got to respect the most while sticking to your editorial integrity. So it's just about mutual understanding and trust, I think. Want to raise that last bit?
Well, they both articulated it much better than I can, but I think for us, we're quite new, you know, in years. So for us, it's just like that. I hate saying being brave, because then I feel like I'm telling, you know, when a client that's really done much in the main sphere is being brave by speaking to me, you know, like I struggle with that. So not being brave, but just, you know, allowing us to come in and first show you the commercial reason and then show you the creative how and where, and you know, allowing us the freedom to do that and the money to do it, because if you got deep pockets and you don't ask too many questions, we're out and you're the best. Silent rich. For us, that's really.
The benefactor.
Very honest. How has GDPR changed or impacted your area of the business? Let's start with you, Jim.
Honestly, not much. Like for me and what I do, frankly, I mean, you know, I'm in a slightly different position because the journal is a subscription product. You know, we have membership, and there is a certain expectation around that membership in terms of what happens with their details and, you know, how we can retarget them or not actually. So GDPR changed a couple of things in our ad targeting. Honestly, it didn't change very much for us because we didn't do a lot of that kind of like direct retargeting or information gathering stuff anyway.
Yeah, we're really the same. Like as a publisher, we own the content, we own the permission, we own the data. So for us, it's not been a huge problem. I think though GDPR was a bit of a kind of, it seemed like the apocalypse was coming and it never quite did. I think we were all really worried about it. It's like the Millennium Bug, and then nothing ever happened.
I think the next wave for advertising could be the apocalypse.
Yeah, I see.
It's actually coming.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
The IC was investigation into data and time bidding.
That could be the best.
I think that's going to really flow up. But hopefully the fact that if we're moving away from like ad-based buying and cookie-based buying, that for publishers, because a publisher should be a good thing because we are like the champions of contextually relevant environments. But for you guys, is it?
It's been an absolute godsend. I know that's really why. So GDPR says you can't target someone for race, religion, or sexual orientation. Well, what we've got built is a platform that has channels on it, that on one channel has all the LGBTQ publications in the UK, and another channel, all the LGBTQ publications in Europe, and another channel, the world, you know, and we have a channel for each country, and then we've got the same for BAME, but they're split out, all the British Asians, all the Asians in Europe. So they're on a channel. So we give you a deal ID to, you know, to an agency or to a client's in-house team, and then they can just buy everything on there. So it's sort of, it's helped in that we are able to give you a way to target a demographic that you're not making a consumer profile for that demographic because it's just a channel number. And then you can do the targeting that's allowed in GDPR whilst on that channel. Does that make sense? So yeah, really, you know, it was an absolute godsend. So we built it not knowing that we were actually, in fact, building this only platform that most of the agencies are buying their diversity media through us now because they can't. Because theirs is the whole Internet of Things, they can't say just target LGBT because that's against GDPR. So they have to sort of you can work around. There's no one from whoever does it. Yeah, it's not work around. It was there before you put it in place.
Yeah, Jim, that's something. Are the tech giants a threat or a partner in growing the content business?
Both, honestly. But I think there is huge potential for partnership. I mean, like Joe touched on it earlier. The value of trusted news has never been higher. And for us as the journal, like we've been voted the most trusted news source certainly in America for like 30 years running. And that trend isn't going anywhere in the short term. And so for us, we're looking at, we've got a recent partnership with Twitter, we've got a partnership with Apple News. The relationship with Google is certainly boring. So I think if we're trying to compete with tech companies as a tech company, we're going to lose. We're not a tech company, right? But they're not publishers and news organizations either. So I think if we can monetize those partnerships better, then there is definitely room to play nice, much more in the future. And actually, like the Apple News, for example, like we're getting incredible content results on that for us, and it opens our kind of membership up to completely new demographics that we weren't reaching. So if we tier our membership and you pay a certain amount for the full thing, what you get on Apple News Plus is not like that. But what we've been able to do is reach. So I think what publishers have to do is be smart about those partnerships, work out where the advantages are for them, but don't try and beat them at big tech companies because you're not going to do that.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, from trying to, it is both again, definitely. We're certainly relying on them, not where we work with them and we gain a lot of referral traffic, specifically for the Sun from social platforms and from Google. I know that my e-commerce side of the business is really run from high purchase intent search terms, which absolutely is, has been great for us. But it's also extremely unpredictable. So the algorithms, you just can't, you just don't know what's coming next, and you can sort of second guess it. But one shift and you can be like completely down for days on end until you figured out what they've done, and you can sort of like recalibrate things to make that work. And also at the same time, things like I and AMP for us, where at first seemed there's more eyeballs or traffic, but we're not able to monetize those formats in the way that we can monetize our own traffic. And also that there's a study, and I can't remember the percentage of people, but who have said that they can't tell what platform, what sort of publisher they are reading when they are in I or AMP, that they just think they're reading Facebook News or Google News. And it's content that's produced and paid for by journalists from publishers across the world. From publishing companies produced by journalists. So it's kind of it does feel at times quite an unfair relationship that we give out a lot, and what we get back, it's not quite balanced yet. And it remains to be seen how that's going to play out, and it is kind of it is difficult to say. And while we're not wanting to bite the hand that feeds us, we're definitely aware that it is a relationship that can at times be quite toxic. So it's two ways for sure.
Sorry, I waited till you finished. Google and Amazon are our biggest clients, so I declined to answer.
Really? Love those guys.
They really are. So
yeah,
it would be right. So,
that's fair. Final question. What do you predict will have changed when it comes to branded content in the next 12 months? You go, Chris.
Lots of diversity, because everyone's going to leave here and then start making that priority.
I think that seeing more performance metrics built into, sorry, I know I'm just really boring and banging on about like metrics, but seeing performance built into Greece, we're getting a lot of, that's kind of shifting. Whereas before we were really getting away with being super like floppy and being like, oh yeah, this is, you know, spend 100 grand with us and people would think your brand is really nice. I think those days are coming to an end a little bit. We're getting pushed much harder, which is fair enough. You know, people are spending money. Also influencers, we're working on a lot of the influencer space at the moment, and that is a like fraudulent industry that's kind of not fraudulent industry. It's an industry that's beset by fraud, and that's going to change a lot. There's a lot of scrutiny on that market at the moment, specifically the ASA, the cap code, or the cap code's changing to reflect the fact that, you know, people are investing money in audiences that are not real. And we saw what happened in the programmatic industry a couple of years ago. I think that's going to happen big time this year, so in the next year. Anyway, sorry, that's all.
That's both more interesting answers than mine, though. But I think consultation, you know, because, I mean, we're talking about publishers and our particular channels, but like pretty much everybody is a publisher now. But, you know, Red Bull being the obvious example, but look, BlackRock have got a content department. Like Siemens 10 years ago producing more like video content than most publishers. The difference is that nobody cared about it, knew it was even there, and they didn't know how to distribute it. And I think that there is an opportunity for, you know, publishers who do understand that to move into much more consultative offerings around, you know, what your distribution strategy is, how are you talking to these people? Like, you know, to your point, like which markets are you actually really trying to talk to? And you know, moving into newsroom strategy and distribution strategy, like kind of best practice and people who know how to do it.
I would agree. That was my final question, as I mentioned. So let's open it up to the room. Do we have any questions to the panel? Anyone?
Yeah, so I don't think we really touched on this in the panel, but do you guys work globally as well, like in terms of like targeting other countries, and how would you, is there something that you could share in terms of how you've targeted or had to reach countries that are quite hard to reach, like China? How have you worked around those requests from brands?
Yeah, I mean, I can start with that. I don't know how useful my answer is, but the answer is yes. Actually, being based, you know, in London for a US brand, mostly people come to us for the US, but you know, like we're working on a big proposal for a big German car company, and a large part of that is China. Now, China is very difficult for us, but we are opening up new partnerships. China in particular is a difficult one. I guess, you know, for us it's slightly different. Our audience is not a mass audience, right? It's a particular audience, a particular demographic. Is high net worth individuals or ultra high net worth individuals in the main. Like 80% of our audience is in the C-suite, for example, right? So if somebody says, oh, I actually really want to target Greece, whatever. It's like, well, okay, I'm not sure what we can deliver or what we can deliver becomes incredibly expensive on a kind of CPM or whatever basis that's not necessarily incredibly attractive. I'm just waffling now, but you know what I mean?
Not waffling, though. We're the same. Like, I think we've worked in campaigns before where we've been asked to target China and other like territories for the banned social networks and things like Google, and that's tough for us because when we're operating outside of our operating territories, which is the UK, the US, and Australia, we rely on social. So when we do go into those markets, it is third-party partnerships, and that can be tough. And it's also not really one for the content industry, because when I was at HuffPost, we used to work with our JVs, and we had 17 editions. But for each one we would work with for branded content, we would change that content to localize it, because it doesn't make so much sense. Even if you translate it through a translation app, where you get someone to just rewrite it or completely translate it word for word, the nuances. But often it's like if you read like a tabloid news site that's been for the US, you can tell very quickly, and it's the dollars, it's mom, it's very kind of like, and automatically eventually people just pull out of it. So I think for big ad buys, then potentially, but for content operating in other markets is a bit of a tough one. But yeah.
I think our response is a little different just because our platform has 350 publishers in 172 countries plugged into it. So our media is it's diverse media in each of these different countries. China, we do through WeChat. And we're not allowed, basically we work with an intermediate. So there is a company they're actually based just in Canary Wharf and in Beijing. And our system sends the ad to them, and then that gets checked by someone in Beijing. And literally. So when we're saying, oh, it's all automated, well, it's automated until it goes through the 5 people that click through and say yes or no. And then let out of every 10 ads, they'll let 1 through. That's how that process works. So that's how we do that bit. But yeah, in other countries, because our publishers are from them countries speaking to a certain demographic in that country. So in the US, it would be Latinx or Afro-American, but in France it would be Parisian, and in Germany it would be Turkish. Their versions of being put in that country, because the publications are from there. Whenever we have a client like Google that wants to do content in 40 countries, we will partner with publications that speak to them, to that community in all of their countries, and get them to. So we'll control the overall message, but they will make, what you said, localized content for that country on our behalf. Because who better to write content to speak to, the German Turkish community than a German Turkish person? That's how we do it.
It's interesting that you guys were talking about like branded content being quite localized as well, because I think branded content can be quite broad, and I guess it'd be good to hear from you guys in terms of like how it can be made as universal as it can be, so it can really appeal to as many markets as possible. And I think we were talking about diversity as well, but is there anything else you think about in terms of making that?
For me, I think you can't. I think gone are the days where you make one ad and expect everybody to resonate with that ad. Then the days are gone. Now you need to, whether it's in the UK, my community might not be the same as yours. It's just now content. We can make content so cheaply now. I know we don't charge it out cheaply, but we can make it so cheaply that, that there is no reason, that the only reason to have one piece of content and say, how can we make this fit everybody is laziness. I can't think, unless you can give me another reason, I can't think of another one. We can distribute and select where we distribute, and if we know where it's going, then obviously we want it to resonate the most and have the highest impact with where it lands. So then why not make it contextually relevant to that audience? And if that audience is different, then I think there's no reason not to make different versions. And sometimes you get more money out of the client if you just give them a good reason. If you ask them for money to make one film and then you go back and say, well, actually, have you looked at this audience and look how big they are? And actually, a lot of audiences, diverse audience, over-index on all sorts, LGBT for travel and for tech, and there's just it's mad. You sort of go in and you say, did you know that people you've never really spoke to actually go on 3 times more holidays a year than their straight counterpart? And once you start giving them, and then they say, oh, okay, so how much do you need to speak to them? All the way for business as well as great content.
No, I would agree with that. I think that it's very, very difficult to do one size fits all. I think especially with like younger people now, like Gen Z, absolutely no pulling the wool in their eyes. They are like really there's so much content at their fingertips and they've got no time for bullshit at all. So like, I think, you know, watching even, but the brand content you consume is actually kind of different to the brand content that we consume as like 30-year-olds, where they are quite happy to be told this is an advert, and they want to be told that. The worst thing for them is if they find out that halfway down the line they're watching something that's been paid for and they're having a marketing message shoved down their throat. So we're off piece from like the territories, but I think the one size fits all model is even harder to pull off if the younger that you go. And I mean, there's obviously like potential exceptions, like maybe like I don't know, Coca-Cola Christmas advert, which like I don't know, but then there's like, and that's not brand content, but things like I think from a larger territory perspective, I mean, you could give it a go and try and group people, but I think it would be tough.
And I think on Gen Z, just because I love a few facts, Gen Z, you know, that I'm surprised I didn't mention it earlier. Actually, really good to bring that up because they are a different kind of fish. You know, this time next year, they're 1/3 of all global consumers. They're 40% of UK and US Gen Z do not identify as heterosexual. It doesn't mean they're all LGBT, but they just, when asked, say, you know, I'm not heterosexual. Stop asking. You know, little nuances like there's 101 other facts I can check out, and they need to start affecting the content that goes out. You know, just treating them as, you know, how we used to make content is not going to work. You know, at large, I can't remember, I think it's 70% will go with a brand that they know is sustainable, you know, and is inclusive. You know, so 70% of 1/3 of all consumers are saying, "Are you inclusive?" and you know, "Are you sustainable?" And then I think about purchasing enough here. So there's a lot of things that content makers from anywhere, you know, themselves through to Kyra, and you know, that's why Kyra especially really, because they started making content knowing that, you know, they had the 4 guys, and now they've got the girls as well. And I think, you know, they will, you're right, they will fade out when everybody else starts making that content. But at the moment, they stand out because nobody else is really doing it. They make YouTube videos and they bustle it around, and brands are coming in and giving them 160 grand. Yeah, you know, for one YouTube video that's like 15 minutes long, you know, what you would get to do a TV commercial. So yeah, I think I just had it.
All right, I think one more, but very quickly, 2-minute answers.
Other from productions, I've noticed that metrics are coming into briefs a lot more, which you mentioned. But I'm also of the opinion that metrics are sort of crushing creativity, which is what you said. I'm sort of interested to hear about how you deal with that. Do you think that's affecting the type of content you're making, where you're sourcing it from, how you're starting your creative process, knowing that you have to achieve certain results with whatever you're making?
Yes, it's incredibly. It can be incredibly difficult, and this is where, you know, we spoke about a lot of things tonight. But relationships with a client and agency are crucial, and putting metrics on creativity is always a bit of a weird one. But I think, you know, that there's not a brief that comes across my desk weekly that doesn't ask for content, that hasn't even asked themselves why they want to do it. You know, and I think what we should be much more confident in doing is asking, you know, challenging groups, challenging clients and agencies as to, okay, so you've asked for this is a laundry list, right? And you said you want this, this, and this. And actually, like, as this organization, what we can do really well is 3 of these 10. And I think we have to be much more, it's easy for me to say this on the creative side because the sales guy that I was with has now left, so that's fine. But like, it's easy for me to say that on the creative side when there's a kind of revenue imperative. But like, if we're not honest with clients and agencies about what we can deliver and what we can't, then ultimately the work's not successful and you don't return and spend more money anyway. So I think to the point, what are those metrics for? Why? Can we challenge them? Do we need to? You know, like, okay, so average video view, video, by the way, despite what everybody might think, is like the least interacted with piece of, like, you know, in the content mix. Video sits right at the very bottom. And the average watch time for video is like 14 seconds. Well, that doesn't mean that if you make a great piece of content that's 9 minutes, people won't watch every single second of it if it's good. And I think that's what we often are not asked. It's like it's making video and length and putting things in boxes without actually talking about what it is and who it's talking to and what it's trying to do. And that 9-minute video might be the absolutely best piece of work for that challenge. It might be that they actually really need a 5-second thing on Twitter, but like I think we've got to be better at challenging those questions and understanding what it is that as content producers we can do, what we can't. Like that, I mean, I get in trouble a lot by in my building by saying, look, you shouldn't be doing content here. You should actually just be doing a display campaign because that is what's going to deliver you your numbers that you want on this. And if you want content to run alongside that, then that's a completely different thing, and the metrics should be different.
I think we're gonna have to cut it short there, I'm afraid.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna over a little bit, but before I wrap, I should say that Mihai from Newsroom AI over there, he's spinning some drinks at is it Martin Bell? Is that what it's Martin Bell? Where's D? We need D. Yeah. Anyway, Moortown Bell. That's what it's called. So we'll head there in 15-20 minutes, something like that. So yeah, finish your drinks, have another one, and yeah. Thank you all very much.
Don't feel the need to
Don't feel the need,
ones because the staff will love me more if they want to left. So.
All right. Thank you very much. Cool.
Good. Yeah. Good mix of people up there. Yeah.